Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next session, which is the Dean's Arena. May I request Dr. Sangeeta Rawat, the current Dean, to come onto the dais to moderate a session. The session is entitled Chai, Kisse aur Kahaniyan, and it is my privilege to invite the former Deans of the Seth Gsmc Medical College and KEM Hospital, Dr. Nilimak Shirsagar, who is the professor and head of clinical pharmacology, who headed these twin institutes from 2001 to 2007. Dr. Shirsagar, madam. Dr. Yavlekar, professor, head of internal medicine, who headed these institutes from 2007 to 8. Dr. Sanjay Oak, head of pediatric surgery, who transitioned to become an administrator in 2008 to 12. Dr. Avinash Supe, surgeon and then GI surgeon, 2015-2018. Dr. Hemant Deshmukh, radiologist and interventional radiologist, who went on to head these twin institutes from 2018 to 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to all the former deans who are here. And I'll now hand over the mic to Dr. Rawat for some Kisse and Kahaniyan. The chai follows after the session.
Hello. Good afternoon all, and I think on the 100th year I have to interview the deans who have nurtured this institute and has brought the institute to such a glory. I think we had a fantastic beginning curtain raiser program, the inauguration done by our Chief Minister, Sri Devendra Fadnavis ji. And I think the program went very crisp. I was very tensed. And I'm sure all the deans must have had some of the other tensed moments when we arranged the program. So I'm sure they all resonated with what... So they all must have resonated with the sleepless nights which we all go through before any programs are, or any major things are done. So can I just ask those experiences, what made you sleepless nights when you were doing your deanship? I think Dr. Shirsagar, maybe ma'am, you can start with the whole thing.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. First of all, I must congratulate and also thank Sangeeta here. Congratulations for making such a grand show as the curtain raiser of this centenary year celebration. And I must also thank her for giving us all an opportunity to share with you all some of our experiences. But I have to tell Sangeeta here that the question she has asked me is out of syllabus.
Yeah, that's the query. I'm not going to ask you questions from that.
She gave to us 7 questions and this was not in the list of 7 questions.
This is the kahaniya which you have to tell.
On the behalf of the students, I can tell you that the dean is capable of asking out of syllabus questions. But she wanted to know as to what made me have sleepless nights. To be quite honest, Sangeeta, I think I had a good sleep at night. But there were definitely occasions when the unions decided to go on strike, or the students went and slept on the lawns outside, or most importantly, when the students came and they wanted permission to have dahi handi in the hospital campus. These were some of the questions which I had to deal with, and I was wondering how to deal. The one with dahi handi was easy. I said, I can't give you any sport activity which is dangerous to your life. I can't allow you that. One of the other sleepless nights was when we had the president's visit here.
Yes, yes, I remember that.
And that was quite an experience. One of our students was actually apprehended by the security of the president, and they actually jailed him, and that was really quite a tense moment for all of us. The bomb blast and other disasters to handle where we have such wonderful staff and which we had such wonderful students. In fact, as you must have noticed that people of this institution is the greatest asset. But sometimes it can be a challenge, you will agree with me.
Sometimes it's difficult to handle the intelligent
Sometimes
people.
quite often it's difficult to handle people, but they are real asset. I will tell you here what Dr. Supe will remember. When we had the bomb blast and we were all standing in the casualty and trying to look after the patients, somebody came and whispered in my ear, there is fire in the library. You can imagine with the bomb blast victim and fire in the library, that was really quite a shocking thing. I said, who is there? They said, Dr. Supe is there. I said, then it's all right. Even if there's fire, he will handle. So those were our quick experiences. I'll stop here so that others...
Yeah. Dr. Oak, sir, would you like to say? Sir, yeah, you can say, sir, first.
Same related. Actually, Madam Shirsagar has said, but I'll tell you that when we sit as a dean, at least to start with, it is a hot chair that we have to accept. And the first question actually was, what made you decide to become the dean? Now you are all aware, internal medicine is a very broad-based speciality, and our earlier promotions come very slowly. So you are already 49, 50 by the time you are head of department. This was the situation. And therefore, rising in life is one of the strongest desire for everybody. And therefore I thought I would not remain an HOD of internal medicine till my superannuation, but I must aspire to acquire a higher post, and that is what we call as the dean's post in our area. Number two, so many thoughts. When you run a department, you have problems, and you feel once in a while, if I were the dean, how would I solve the problem in a different way? The last thing is, because this is a chai talk, I will get it light. One of my seniors told me, Evlekar, if you want to become dean, go ahead, because in this city of Mumbai, there are 100 cardiologists, 50 neurologists, 70 nephrologists, but there are only 3 deans. So, if your ambition is to rise up and head a teaching institution and do the things that you feel like doing, in the case of medical education, in the case of hospital administration, and through the municipal corporation in the health management, this is your chance. You will have to do little sacrifice in relation to your favorite subject of medicine, but you will be able to compensate in a big way as far as your career is concerned. And the second thing I would like to share, which Madam had asked, that once you become a director, how do you manage all the things, namely the administration, hospital, etc. I think at my time, I just told the administration that though I become the director, my office will be KEM Hospital. Even if I run the administration, I want to be within doctors, within patients, within nursing staff and hospital. At that time, initially there was a little space problem, how to accommodate the director office. and then we could make adjustment, and all the hospitals, major hospitals in the city that were under the administrative authority, we could manage from the KEM hospital itself. And finally, what Dr. Kshirosagar said, that strikes by the nursing staff, and our biggest threat is what will happen in the E ward, emergency ward. Because all the time, when I joined, it was the month of August, July and August. So you are all aware of the malaria, dengue, lepto epidemic. Everything is happening, all complications, wrong transfers, delayed transfers, all these problems are there. So at that time, there was one issue called as line listing. That is, we have to ensure that all the admissions in the last 24 hours are listed properly and submitted to Maharashtra control, not within the BMC. So that was also a big challenge. So these are some of the issues that I faced, but I believe that I did my best. That is what I am satisfied about. And I am all the more happy that I am given an opportunity to share on this occasion. And I consider 100-year centenary as a big milestone from which the hospital and the institution will take a big leap off. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Dr. Oak, sir, I would like to ask you a different question. I think is that you are a hardcore clinician, I heard, and you love to do surgeries. So how did you got into the administrative, and was there a difficult choice, or you liked your choice?
No, Sangeeta, I think it was a very conscious choice. This year, in fact, I complete precisely 20 years of health sector administration because I was chosen as a dean on 1st of January 2005. So I completed precisely 20 years riding both the horses. Okay. And till today morning, I have not been toppled by either of the horse. Well, to tell you honestly, I'm a die-hard surgeon. I have, this question was asked to me by Kunte sir in the interview of MPSC, that what will happen to your surgery? And I remember the answer, and I still maintain it. I was not a born surgeon, but I will die as a surgeon. And I maintain that. I think surgery de-stresses, D-E-S-T-R-E-S-S. It doesn't D-I-S-T-R-E-S-S to me. But then there's a difference in the two things. I mean, however good you might be in surgery, you can do about 3 children, 5 children, 6 children. Nowadays we do CAMs on a very big scale. Like last year in CAMs on Sundays, I operated 1,100 children in Maharashtra at various places.
Great, sir.
But that's one part of it. By doing good administration, you can streamline, strategize, and speed up the growth of at least 35 departments and touch the lives of millions of people. So both had challenges, both had problems, but both had opportunities. And that's why I've enjoyed them. Until today, I do both the things.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Deshmukh, you had a most, I think, difficult times as a dean because you had to take, during the COVID, you took over the deanship. But I think everybody has lots and lots of praise for KEM and your deanship, that COVID was handled very well. So any specific things you would like to say, how did you handle, or any strategies which I can follow, our future deans can follow to, for such difficult times of KEM?
Sangeeta, COVID was a blessing in disguise probably to teach a lot of people how to look at health and eventually how health can be turned into digital health. It was all about interconnectedness amongst everybody. It was not about doctors, it was not about patients, but how well you could connect to other specialities, how well you could connect to patients in different regions, how well you could connect doctors in different regions of the entire world. And that's how we can plan the preparedness about how to prevent COVID or spread of COVID by reducing the contact between two people or two patients or two vulnerable patients, you can say. Managing COVID was a multi-speciality team effort, and I thank most of the multi-speciality clinicians who are present here. everybody acted like a ICU specialist. Everybody was a super specialist in his own field, but a COVID specialist is in reality during COVID. And hats off to all the soldiers, all the faculty in KEM who went by all the SOPs that we draw. We had multi-speciality meetings every day. Remember anybody? 5 hands up. ICU specialists are, I can't see any hands up. So most of the people who were present in those meetings would manage each and every patient who is admitted in the ICU. And mind you, that time KEM was not 2,500 beds general hospital. It was 600 bedded ICU dedicated to COVID. And another building was dedicated to non-COVID patients. So you have a multi-speciality hospital where you manage COVID dedicated patients, and the other side you manage non-COVID patients who were by and large neglected by all the private hospitals in the city and in the country and in the state during the COVID.
Yeah, I think you did it fantastically, and I think it was a team effort. So it's like it's a KMI, who are we, and GSites, and that's what we showed, I think, during the COVID. So, Dr. Supe sir, I think you had a very long directorship, and then you were handling all the hospitals together, and you also had a dean at the hospital, and then you came to KEM. So what was your experience as a director, and also?
See, I think what is important, sorry for my voice, but what is important is that when you are working as a director, you really look beyond KEM also. And that time I think it was a golden period, because I think all the administrators were positive and they were really good kind of support, I think, that time. So I could do so many things. Establish 5 hospitals, AIC Center, Cooper Medical College. I mean, if you really see all this, we could do it. And in fact, even our hospitals, we could plan all things. What today building you said was all planned during, I think, I mean, a long legacy of all this. But I personally feel when you become a director, you start looking at the health in a big way. You know, monsoon related, leptos and all. So I personally feel it gives a broader perspective. You can impact more people. You can implement many things which you think in a small department of 5 people, you cannot do it. And you know, you can influence your department and you can save 1,000 patients in a year. But when you become a director, you start implementing and impacting millions of people. And I think that's the great advantage of being this. I understand Dean's post is not a very comfortable post. I'm sure. I know Madam President had come and how much trouble we had gone through. I was secretary of that Platinum Jubilee.
Yeah.
And we have seen so many disasters, bomb blasts being handled here. So I personally feel though we go all through this pain, at the end the satisfaction is so much of building something, developing something, impacting something. And I think after working for 33 years as a clinician, I think we need to see a little more broader and trying to impact into education, administration and health. And I think that's the purpose which we really follow. Otherwise, though we are anyway doing surgeries,
Yes.
treating patients, getting well, that though we do it every day. But I think, can you think little beyond? I think that's what the value of it is.
Yeah, I entirely agree. I never thought I will become a dean, and then
I remember that time I had asked you and you said no that time. But I was very happy when you took it, because I personally feel,
I had taken it for 10 days.
I remember
to
all
write in
that.
my CV. That's
Yeah, yeah.
what my
even
thought was.
even Hemant, I remember last few days I asked him. Initially he said no. Later on the last day he said yes, and then I think I handed over to him. So I think I was also in a dilemma. In 2001 I got selected as a dean, but it took me almost 10 years before realizing I left that dean's post, and I
Yeah.
became 2013. I think it's all history, but you must realize that 10 years were very vital. Because with Sanjay and I think everybody, we could develop our department, start the liver transplant program. So it's a very satisfying journey in this hospital.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
So Sangeeta, not only you, when I wanted to appear for Dean's post, I went to him. And I
I
asked
think
him.
all of us go to the previous
yeah,
deans.
he's the guide, you know. So I went and asked him that, Avinash, should I apply? Should I try? And I still remember the sentence that he used. reply that he gave me, and I'm going to say it aloud and then let him confirm whether I stuck to that. He said, हो ना, काय हरकत नाही, फक्त एक म्युनिसिपलाइज होऊ नकोस.
What I feel, when you are in our own department, we are so autonomous, creative. When you go into administration, you become absolutely municipal. I personally feel an institution like ours need a very creative dean, a innovative dean, visionary dean, forward-looking dean. If you start looking only at files, no, nothing will progress. You must remember.
I agree, entirely agree with you. Yes, madam.
One small thing I must share, that in 1992, when the first bomb blast tragedy took place, at that time I was in the KEMH hospital, professor of medicine, helping all the surgeons, including Dr. Suppe, Dr. Shinoy, and all that. Subsequently, in 2006, when there were multiple train bomb blasts, at that time I was asked by the media, how could you precisely handle and manage such a big crisis situation? And I told them, I have earned the elementary lessons when I was professor of medicine, but at KEMH hospital, an identical tragedy, and therefore I can understand all the dimensions and the ways in which we can tackle on an efficient basis. So even as a professor, if you learn in KEM, the experience can be translated to any situation outside, not only confined to the city of Mumbai, but to the state as well, because disaster management and relief is one of the key points of the Municipal Corporation of Greater Bombay. And the municipal administration depends on all the tertiary hospitals in particular. And the second aspect, many of the residents complain that too often the patients are referred to KEM. So during the directorship, I talked to the medical superintendents of peripheral hospitals, try to minimize your referrals to the KEM hospital. They should be treated primarily there, and your referrals should be selective and not all-time referrals. So elevating the peripheral hospital is also very important.
I'll just like to add here two things. One on to the previous question. Dr. Suppe, now this I can say, I hope. When Dr. Suppe was first selected in MPSC, and I was dean then, and he came and asked me, should he accept the deanship? And I said, when you think that you have mastered gastroenterology, then you take deanship. And he wanted to do his liver transplant as his institution, as his department. So he postponed his decision for taking the deanship. But I also, for disaster management, would want to add, you asked when you have sleepless nights, kind of a shocking moment was, we had prepared all these documents for disaster management in the hospital, and we had kept a cupboard ready onto the medical side and the surgical side, saying both were to be stocked fully for everything. And I was questioned, isn't that duplicacy? I said, no, doesn't matter, for disaster it's all right. And it so happened that when the bomb blast occurred and when we started getting the patients, the key to the cupboard in one of the places, the sister had taken with her to home. So the other one came handy, and that was for a moment I missed my heartbeat. Now what are we going to do? The other one came handy. So we do have all sorts of
Yeah, we do have that. Yes, you're saying something.
Always used to boast that we have 20 lakh OPD and all. 2 days before I went to IGAP, VMR, Calcutta to give a talk, and they said they have 3,740 beds and 40 lakh OPD. So I was a little shocked. Then I went around the hospital. It had all patients lying and trolleys like what we have usually. But what I realized, government hospitals today are getting overloaded all over the country. And we need to really look at these patterns of transfers which happen.
Yes.
And in what happens when you get too much of load, we tend to lose our speciality and super speciality kind of a status. I think we need to develop these kind of a models where only complicated super specialty patients are treated in our place. I understand it's not so easy.
It should be
but if you
treated
want
as
to maintain
tertiary
that
care.
kind of a hierarchy in the institutions, we need to work on that focused kind of a treatment.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that Dr. Sanjeev Kumar also had this vision, and that's why he started this HBT clinics. So he said at least routine fever, cough, cold can be tackled there. So at least the major hospitals are not burdened with those routine patients.
Our analysis of skin OPD, I remember when I was there, we get 800 patients of skin OPD. We analyze 400 patients, have a routine kind of an test which can be done anywhere into the city. They don't need to come to KEM, but they still come to KEM, maybe because of trust.
Because of the name and the doctors.
Trust. But I think we need to think about tele and all, something like that, you know.
Yeah,
AI, tele, mobile, something has to be done.
I agree entirely, because that's where, because what happens at the end of the OPD, the residents and the doctors get exhausted, and then we may not be able to do good justice to the patient.
No, creativity gets lost.
Research, creativity, there is no time to all those things. So now I'll come to the questions which I had given to you, I think. So I think, why did you choose to become a dean? I think, madam, you can say what made you become
So madam is asking the first question now. So, what made me take the dean's post? We had, as was already said by my other friends here, that we've all worked in our own departments, and having we've sort of contributed to our own disciplines. And the lesson that we have learned there, and the experience that we have learned there, we feel that the time is just right to, open it up to a bigger canvas and to the institution. So I'm always reminded by APJ Abdul Kalam's statement on learning progression, and says that, you should have a disciplinary mind where you have mastered over one discipline. He says 10 years, maybe we take a bit longer. And then he says you should have a synthesizing mind where you synthesize expertise from various disciplines and various other faculties, and be able to, in a creative way, creative mind is his third expertise, he says, that you're able to, with these backgrounds, be able to solve problems which even a computer cannot solve. And that's the kind of, need for, and I must say that dean's post is something very different. It's not just any dean, it's dean of KEM Hospital. So that's where I thought that not only the learning experience, but also an opportunity to expand one's own vision and abilities. Of course, his fourth and fifth abilities, which he said, was to be able to have a sympathetic mind, be able to understand the viewpoint of others, and also be ethical. Understand the viewpoints of others is something very important. When we work in our own disciplines, we are all very tightly knit and we all think alike. It's when you become the dean that you really start understanding the viewpoints of others. I'll just give a small snippet here. In the dean's office, you will have two sides of the table. On one side, it will be the union members sitting, and on the other side, it is the professors, the faculty sitting. And they have huge fights with each other, because the union says, Professor, हमारे और देखते नहीं हैं, हमारा कोई ख्याल नहीं रखते हैं, and then the professors are defending it. So with all that, I was trying to explain to them in, I said, उनको भी बहुत टेंशन होता है. Then I said, no, कोई मुझे हिंदी शब्द बताइए टेंशन के लिए. So there was a pin drop silence. After some time, one from the union raised his hand and he said, मैं बताता हूँ. बताइए. Tension. He said tension. So that was his translation for tension. So my tension got relieved, and later on I found that the professors and the union both sitting in the canteen and having tea together and laughing. So that's how my tension was relieved, and that is how I learned that you should understand the other person's viewpoint also.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Oak, I wanted to ask you, I think, a different question on this. See, we all are clinician, and then when we become a dean, we have to see all the engineering files and, you know, understand the tenders and all those things. So, did you tackle those things, you know? Because you built the whole building and all those things during your time. So, for as a doctor, I mean, you really have to learn all those things and, you know, make sure that nothing wrong goes then, because finally you are responsible for that.
So I think, as I answered in the first part, to be a dean was a very conscious decision for me. My honest submission is I was following my late beloved madam, Dr. Mrs. Snehalata Deshmukh's career. So she had become dean, she had become vice chancellor, and I followed all that courses till I eventually became CEO of Aga Khan Foundation. As a preparatory for this, I had done all the possible courses, including law, hospital administration, medico-legal system, and human resource management from TISS and Narsi Moji Institute of Management Studies. I had written a thesis, and the thesis for my hospital administration was how to build and maintain a hospital, architectural, right from architecture to everything. So I enjoyed making buildings, which I have still continued, right from Nair phase till today.
Yes.
I'm making 3 big hospitals now and a health city for NMIMS.
Right.
So you need to understand the nuances of these projects. You need to learn to talk to each other. Mr. Ratho was one of the additional municipal commissioners in our times. And there was an engineer's day, like 1st of July becoming a doctor's day, there is something as an engineer's day. And we celebrated that in KEM because this hostel building was being built. And I made jokingly that today doctors and engineers are talking on the same line. And Ratho smiled and added and said, no, more important than that, Dr. Oak, you have made civil engineers and electrical engineers talk to each other. And that is why the projects are going ahead. So most of the things, the projects get stalled or something goes wrong because people don't talk to each other. At the root of every failure, at the root of every delay is a human element. And we need to take care of that.
Agreed.
One small thing I can
Yes,
add.
sir.
The cooperation of the engineering department is extremely important. Once at night around 10:30, I saw on the TV fire in the newborn unit, NICU, in Madhya Pradesh. But then when I saw that, immediately I thought Madam Nanavati was there at that time, neonatology. But first thing I did was I contacted our electrical and mechanical engineer. Arey bhai, please look into the electrical connections of our NICU. Because if something happens somewhere else, we have to draw the lessons first for our own hospital. Otherwise, you know how the media headlines are. आता इथे मध्य प्रदेशची घटना संपते न संपते तोच इथे पण. So we have to be careful that any incident happening all over the country, what bearing or relevance does it to our hospital? So I have awakened and aroused engineers on many times to check up the connections and be sure and guarded that our setup is very clear and fully protected.
Yeah.
Sangeeta, I must tell you,
Yes, sir.
the best way you can become, you can manage the dean's office. I would like to thank all the three. I mean, Shesaga Madam, Yevlekar sir and Oak sir. Whenever they used to go on leave, they used to put me as an acting dean. I think once you're acting dean, you get used to all these kind of trouble.
Yes.
The only, and of course, as Sanjay said, you get trained into TISS and education management and all. So you ultimately, dean's post is managing people. But the most important thing the dean post has to manage is the media management. In today's world, whether it's a print media, social media or video, I think you have to really learn what words to use, because one word here and there, you can make noise. I think, of course, I saw all three people, and even that time our AMC was there, Manisha Madam. I think they all taught me how to handle the media in a dean's post. Otherwise, if you are not able to manage media, as a dean's post is a disaster.
Yes.
You are bombarded with so many kind of calls and your comments are twisted and you know you have to face answers and you know all this. You have to learn it very right.
Absolutely.
I'm sure all of us have gone
What
through
to
this.
speak and what not to speak to
Can I
media.
tell you
think.
something funny? Can I tell you something funny? Very often in the dean's office, you will remember that 2 or 3 relatives and with one person is not talking and he is very quietly recording on the phone every word that is being spoken. So I used to tell them, तुमचा फोन आहे ना प्लीज टेबलवर ठेवा म्हणजे माझा आवाज चांगला रेकॉर्ड होईल.
But first thing I did as a dean, I put 2 cameras because you know I think the cameras were not there in dean's office. I said first 2 cameras.
I also
and
think-
the person sitting front should be there. It should be recorded. You know, I think that makes half of your problems get lost.
I did the same thing when I entered
And
the.
open window, glass window, those kind of policies. We are good in KEM actually. We don't want closed window policies.
Yes, agreed, sir.
Just one small thing I can share because Dr. Supe has talked about media. It's extremely important. Perhaps some of you might remember about the missing fisherman story. There was a person who had crossed across in a different country. He was brought to KEM and the missing fisherman became a great issue all the time. How he is being admitted every day, questions and answers. But one day, all media had come together. And then one person had come from the BBC. So I just told get him in, let him sit. And outside, there were our local media, Hindi and Marathi. So immediately they started making you are giving priority only to international media. And then outside when I started speaking in Aaj Aisa Hua, to say, wait, Marathi first. So then I spoke in Marathi. Then all the translation into Hindi, and finally the BBC man. Of course,
Sure.
BBC man, I had to tell him that without commissioner's permission, we do not talk about to international media. So that was our polite answer.
Yeah. Once I remember I was Sahan Dean and there was one young girl which was raped and Rakhi Samant came, you know, with all
You had a
her
good
tantrums. And she started putting all tantrums. So I politely told her, Ki, madam, you go. She did not really listen to me. Then I just raised my voice and threw her out. Next day, it was a Times of India news. Dr. Supe threw the Rakhi Samant out of Dean's room. So I think you have to really be ready. I remember Aruna Shanbag when she died. I remember we had almost about more than 300-400 reporters in our campus.
Right.
And the news had gone almost about 300-400 papers. So I think we, as a dean, you have to be ready with all this which is not taught actually.
Yeah, I actually, when I took over as a dean, no, I thought one thing, that negative news karne many reporters are there. So why not project our good things? Who will do that? And that's the reason I started this Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and
Absolutely,
LinkedIn, everything
absolutely.
of KEM.
So then I only started giving articles to all these media about
Yeah,
KEM.
you give a lot of print article.
That's the best way to see that you throw the
Right.
KEM.
Very good.
Another
So
worry
we
is
have to project ourselves that we are
another
doing
class you should take, actually all deans should take, is how to handle politicians, the
please.
people leaders.
That was my
and-
next question,
And
actually.
social leaders. Those who come with tikas, golden chain, all those make noise, how to handle them effectively. It itself is a challenge.
So just
how
a
do you
second,
handle
just a second on this.
I will tell you how
Just
to
a
handle them. The basic of is this, that more examples will be given by everybody, but the basic of it is that they all have their own egos. And the trouble with KEMite, frankly, is we have our own egos. So that's where the clash happens. If one of these VIPs into courts walks in, they expect us to stand up. And we don't think we should stand up for anybody. And because we follow the legacy of Jivraj Mehta, sir. But that's where the clash happens. One of the deans from other colleges, senior to me, once informed me that that's not the way to handle them. If they come to you, most of the time it is regarding a patient. And you should instantaneously react to it. So once when one of them had come to my office and when I was looking at file, He said, oh, there is a patient there. And I put the file down and I got up. He said, "Aap file dekh raha hai?" I said, "File is not important. Your patient is important." And he was so pleased. So I think one of the lessons I learned is they are elected representatives or they have come here for a patient. So we have to respect their requirement there. And we have to
Yes.
keep our, sort of
Absolutely.
ego
I think we
aside.
need to learn that tactics, how to handle them.
No, I think I remember once one minister was there. You know, KEM's dean room is made of stone. So that time Vodafone never used to reach. My phone was never picked up.
So that was very nice. Your
Yes.
phone not
So I
reachable.
will tell you. So once I did not pick up phone of some minister of health. So he came and he started fighting with me and all. I was quite junior dean that time. So I said, okay sir, I'll look into this and all. But then he said, I'm going to go and talk to the commissioner. That time commissioner sir, I think Ajay Mehta sir was there. So in the evening I went to head office and I met Ajay Mehta sir and I just told him, sir, you will get a call from Minister of Health and you will have to really. He says, Dr. Supe, don't bother about all this. You are also a dean and director. Just, I will handle all this. You do your own work, I will handle. Don't just bother about this. And since then, I never got worried about any all these phone calls. So, it's very important the way everybody looks at it. So, as I said, you give them, treat them well. When you look after patients, whatever their needs are. But you don't have to go beyond and lose your self-respect.
I think tea vending machine in our dean office is very important.
Yes.
As soon as they come, offer them a tea and a water, then they're,
You
they're
don't
half
have
cooled
to-
down.
You don't have to leave your self-esteem and a dean's post just because somebody comes to you. You should maintain our own self-esteem,
Absolutely.
but do their work. That's all I feel. So.
Which I must remember and share with the Madam Dean and all future deans, is that where and when to grant the interview. Sometimes they come in the working hours, they may take and consume lot of your time. But if you are not available during daytime, I recollect at 11:30 p.m. at night at the Dean's bungalow, one star media came and he said, "Sir, I want a bite. My editor has ordered that." I said, "This is my residence. You can come tomorrow." Insisted a lot. How can I go about? And therefore, I just took my pant shirt and across our GS Medical College gate, because I wanted to ensure that the background is not residence, but the background is office. So this GSMC gate, I just gave him the bite that he wanted. But place of interview and the background both matter much for people holding senior position.
I think we can
I'll
go
just,
to the...
I'll
Yeah.
add one thing here. Place of residence is important. Full support from your family members is also important. So much so that, usually you would have seen, all of us have seen, that the office work stops at 9 o'clock. 6 to 8 o'clock is looking at the file. 8 o'clock, all the media and all the politician, everybody now wakes up and now they have all the questions. So it's all at home. So my husband used to answer many of their questions, idhar jana hai, udhar jao, etc., etc. So much so that I can even give his name, Mr. Rustum Tirandaj. He when come to my office once, he said, "आप हमारा काम करते हैं वो तो ठीक ही है." I said, "हाँ, but आपके husband वो भी हमारा इतना काम कर लेते हैं." So you need to have your family members also to understand and be fully supportive.
I know, that is very important. I think
So
I
you are
agree
very
entirely.
supporting husband, Sangeeta.
Yes, I agree.
So that's the reason why we could see Hasmukh helping you so much around.
नाम ही
But
हंसमुख है.
let me tell one thing.
Yes, sir.
These are the things which are never, it's like there are things for MBA and management which are never taught in Harvard, which are never printed in textbooks. It is the chair, once you occupy that in the office, that chair teaches you how to deal. And with every progressive decade, the things will become from bad to worse. I don't want to scare the prospective. There are so many faces who want to become dean and who must become dean for our institutes. This is a part of life. If Saif Ali Khan's rickshawala becomes a media person today to tell how he has taken and वो 40 रुपया कैसा नहीं लिया है, I don't think, learn to accept one thing. There is hardly any private personal life once you occupy such chairs. I had the worst of the phases when I was leading the task force. There was media infiltrating from boardroom to bedroom, coming with their own theories, coming with their own therapeutics. And then you have to lead the state and tell these things in a very proper manner. So, media is a part of life. It's a question not of our survival, but of their survival. Please remember.
Yeah, absolutely. No, sometimes they just come to our office and say, please give us a story. Because आज मैंने कुछ फाइल नहीं किया है. Today I have to file.
उसमें संगीता एक बात है जो I would like to tell all the prospective new people. Make friendship Shanti Asthana. If you make friends with them, there will be less bleeding in the war. If you make friends in the peace. So that
Sometimes they come and tell कि madam ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है, be careful. You won't come and tell because
so
you have
it's
become
like
friends.
it's like you hearing Dhritarashtra hearing through Sanjay's mouth, you know.
Yeah, Dr. Deshmukh, would you like to share any funny anecdotes or anything or during your tenure?
Hello. Funny or serious notes? I don't remember, but the most pressing point during COVID was obviously media, as we continued with
because
media.
that's what I was thinking. You must have faced
Yeah,
media the
so
lots.
NDTV was very happy with me. Every day, at least 10 minutes, I would sparkle on NDTV. I don't know, many of you have seen it. But they wanted a perspective from the western region of the country of what COVID is, what is happening to COVID, and what is happening to vaccinations, and what is the status of the spread of the virus. So NDTV also tried to grill me every time online, asking stupid questions like, I'll tell you, there's no vaccination available. I'm 65 years old and I cannot travel to the hospital for vaccination. All the private hospitals are vacant and your hospital patients are waiting in the casualty. There are at least 100 patients there outside the hospital with COVID positive. So these were the questions that media will always try and grill you, but they were happy. I could disseminate a lot of information about COVID to the general population in the country. And one good thing was the media was so happy that they continued to cooperate with us, spread the education about COVID and stop the spread of infection.
One of the points which I always feel is difficult for a dean to handle is a March strike. I feel
I've still not
simple.
faced it, thanks.
One day March strike is okay, but when it becomes prolonged strike, there's a division. On one side is your faculty working too much, other side the media is on other side, and students are, then the war goes on. You have to put a notice on a hostel, and then you get emails and messages from all over the world.
Emotional message.
Sir,
How can you
how
make
could
it?
Supe sir
How
put
can-
a message onto the hostel? All these kind of messages, emotional blackmailing happens
Emotional
at
blackmail
this stage.
starts.
And the dean gets caught into this. But I think the basic problem of our is hostels. So I planned that
Eckworth Hostel is...
Eckworth hostel is coming up,
Yeah.
which I think it was 22 storied. I think we need more hostels like this.
Absolutely.
And I hope that hostel will solve partly problem of our hospital.
I'd just
So I think
like to,
I'll go over to the
Sangeeta,
last question, I
I
think.
just want to add one, you can call it as a funny incident, but it illustrates the kinds of problems that can come onto the dean's table and how you need your own staff to be fully supportive. So I had once a phone call from a reporter saying that in your hospitals, biological waste, one dead body has been found. Gosh, that would make headline. So my savior used to be always our deputy dean, Dr. Rankambe. So I called him. His first response was, अपने यहाँ से भी कोई भी body missing है ही नहीं. So there is no missing body. And then it turned out actually that from the anatomy departments, various parts after dissection are put into the biological waste. And as usually happens, when there is a badli kamgar, that's when problems start. That badli kamgar, instead of cutting it into, chopping into pieces, had disposed of the full body. This would have made big news, but it got averted thanks to very alert persons from the hospital support system.
So I'll just go to the last question, I think. Just two-line answer. What is the vision for KEM in this thing?
I think KEM should expand now.
We should have a new
Vertically-
building
Vertically,
for the patient.
technologically,
Absolutely, I agree.
and I think we should have all this molecular, genetic, everything. We should have wonderful budget with genetic research, state-of-the-art equipment, and I personally feel we should have more opportunities for a faculty to grow internationally.
Agree.
Two things. One is I have completed a course in digital health from IIM, and I think the morning OPD patients, at least 25,000 patients are seen in the city of Mumbai attending OPDs in all hospitals. So everything should be digitalized. UPI
HMIS is coming, sir. You are
yeah,
right.
UPI is one thing. And the place where we are sitting, this is a big footprint for a multi-story complex. Auditorium, cafeterias, multiple
So
lecture
we have
halls,
planned that also,
multiple
sir.
car parking, and let the library and be
And
shifted
the
back here.
nursing quarters where we have planned this
Yeah,
multiple
I
halls
think next
and the
10 years
parking.
it should fructify.
We have planned.
At least plan. Next dean will achieve. it.
Yes, absolutely. Next in will do. So
Just
vision.
one line, Sangeeta. This place is like my mother. And I want this to be always in the forefront of clinical and paraclinical medicine, every department, every new invention, technology. It pains me when I buy things for private sector. And always I feel why these things have not yet come to our three premier institutes, 3 or 4 now. But there is a corollary to whatever I have always carried in my heart. Never lose your focus that we exist for a common man in the street.
Absolutely. I agree with you, sir.
My single word is balanced and comprehensive growth for the hospital. And I thank you for giving us the opportunity. Some thoughts uppermost in our minds, we thought we must share with all of you over here. Maybe some are of use, and some thoughts may encourage you to rise up further. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Agreeing to how KEM can expand, I think no matter how much we expand, we will never be able to fulfill the needs really of patient. What I think is critically important is to be able to mentor institution outside this place and outside Mumbai and other parts of the country and maybe even other world. Maybe I could give the example like at Tata Cancer Hospital, they have developed their own satellite centers. So I think that's something that would be hugely helpful. And we do have connections with other municipal institutions, both here and in other countries. So that's what I think is the vision. Beside everything, I agree with everything that has been said.
So thank you very much, and I think we had wonderful time, and thank you to all the deans for this wonderful sharing your experience and kiss on chai. Chai pe charcha ho gayi hamari.
And all of them have concluded that we should have 50 floors for KEM. I think everybody concluded
Everybody
that we should
has
have
said.
50 floors. Thank you.
I think that noise should go till the CM again.
IT डिपार्टमेंट येईल तुमच्याकडे सोन्याचा मेडिसिनच्या लोकांच्याकडे IT डिपार्टमेंट आली आहे
The whole thing was that this team effort of KEM Hospital has really shown today. And we could, today morning's program, that it went so crisp that everybody, including the CM and MC, were very happy. So I think the team effort has really shown that all of us worked very hard for the last 2 months, and we could finally achieve this. And I thank that all our deans are also supporting here, and now we have to gear up further for the better future of KEMI. Thank you very much.
Reaching what status we have today in the country. So it's a great contribution from teachers like you which has shaped this institution. I now have got great privilege in introducing our next alumni, that is from 1998 batch, and that's Dr. Amal Kolle. He is hero's hero because somebody who plays Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj on the screen, I think there cannot be any bigger role to play on screen than this. I think it's tremendous thing. It's what we have learned right from history, like it's Shivaji Maharaj that runs in our blood, and I'm really so feeling grateful as if I'm sitting next to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. I hand over to Amol for his.
जय शिवराय. खरं तर कुठल्या भाषेत बोलायचा हा प्रश्न आधी विचारणार होतो. सर ते बाय डिफॉल्ट आहे, कारण स्टेजच तुम्ही अशा जागी उभं केलंय की केईएम मधली ओळखच या स्टेजवर केवळ मराठीच्या अट्टहासापायी यू शुड बी थ्रोन आउट ऑफ दिस कॅम्पस असं ऐकण्यापासून झाली होती. पण खरं तर मी ऑर्गनायझिंग कमिटीचा मनापासून आभारी आहे, कारण इतके दिग्गज बसलेले भोजराज सर असतील, नटराजन सर असतील, रवी रमाकांत सर असतील, मुंशी सर असतील, म्हणजे बसल्यानंतर नाडकर सर खरं तर मला असं वाटलं होतं की ते खूप चांगलं काहीतरी सुरू असतं आणि लहान लेकराला नजर लागू नये म्हणून तीट लावतो, तसं आपल्याला आणून बसवलं, लिंबू टिंबू म्हणून यांच्यामध्ये बसवलंय. कारण ही खरंच फार मोठी माणसं, ते आभाळ एवढी माणसं आहेत. म्हणजे या इतक्या मोठ्या माणसांबरोबर खरं तर केवळ बसण्याची संधी देणं किंवा त्यांच्यासमोर केईएमच्या या आठवणी जागवण्याची संधी देणं, याबद्दलच मी तुमचा सगळ्यांचा मनापासून ऋणी आहे. कारण केईएमच्या आठवणी अनेक आहे, पण मला जास्त महत्त्वाचं वाटतं की केईएमने नक्की दिलं काय. तर पहिली गोष्ट केईएमने जी सगळ्यात महत्त्वाची दिली ती म्हणजे तू एकटा नाहीस ही गोष्ट सांगितली. ती दोन अर्थाने सांगितली की घरापासून 200-250 किलोमीटर लांब हॉस्टेलला राहिल्यानंतर जेव्हा घराची आठवण येते तेव्हा तू एकटा नाहीस हा एक विश्वास केईएमने कायम दिला. आणि त्याचबरोबर लहानपणापासून तुम्ही शाळेचे ब्लू आईड बॉय असता, कुटुंबाचे ब्लू आईड बॉय असता, आणि त्यानंतर उगाच कर्णाचा रथ जसा महाभारतात 4 अंगुळ वर चालत असतो तसा आपलाही रथ 4 अंगुळ वर चालायला लागतो. आणि तेव्हा जेव्हा आमच्या वेळी तर 180ची बॅच होती, आता 250ची बहुतेक, पण 180च्या बॅचमध्ये केईएममध्ये आल्यानंतर तू एकटा नाही सर बेटा, तुझ्यासारखे बाकी 179 आहेत, ही सुद्धा जाणीव पहिल्यांदा केईएमने दिली. आणि त्यातून सगळ्यात महत्त्वाची गोष्ट दिली ती म्हणजे अस्तित्वाच्या शोधाची सुरुवात ही खरं तर इथं झाली. कारण मी कायम असं मानतो, मी कायम असं समजतो की डबक्यात असताना आपणच मोठे आहोत असं वाटणं फार सोपं असतं, पण डबक्यातून जेव्हा पहिल्यांदा आपण तळ्यात येतो, तळ्यातून जेव्हा पहिल्यांदा समुद्रात येतो, तेव्हा आपण कोण आहोत याचा शोध घेण्याची सुरुवात, ज्याला आपण आपल्या संस्कृतीमध्ये कोहम म्हणतो, ही सुरुवात जी झाली ती खरी केईएमनी झाली. आणि सेठ GS मेडिकल कॉलेज आणि केईएममध्ये खरंच मला आता गंमत वाटली की नारायणगावसारख्या एका छोट्याशा खेडेगावातून आलेला मुलगा, केवळ आपल्या घरात कुणीही डॉक्टर नाही आणि लहानपणापासून हुशार असल्यानंतर सर्वसामान्य मराठी मध्यमवर्गीय कुटुंबात ही एक अपेक्षा असते की पोरगं जर हुशार असेल पहिलं दुसरं येणारं असेल तर त्याने डॉक्टर नाही तर इंजिनियर झालं पाहिजे, म्हणजे कुटुंबाचं पांग फुटलं. घरात कुणीही डॉक्टर नसतं, त्यामुळे अनेक पालकांची ही अपेक्षा असते. ते स्वप्न घेऊन आलेला मुलगा आणि त्यानंतर सडनली गोष्टी बदलत गेल्या आणि आज खरं तर मेंबर ऑफ पार्लमेंट म्हणून, खासदार म्हणून, तोही सेकंड टर्मचा खासदार म्हणून 24.5 लाख लोकांचं प्रतिनिधित्व करत असताना तुमच्या समोर उभं राहायचा या प्रवासामध्ये KEMचा वाटा सिंहाचा आहे. आणि या सगळ्या खरं तर माझ्या शिक्षकांचा वाटा हा सिंहाचा आहे. त्याचे काही कारणं फक्त सांगेत. विशेषतः ॲज अ टीचिंग हॉस्पिटल, मगाशी रमाकांतन सरांनी याचा उल्लेख केला. ॲज अ टीचिंग हॉस्पिटल यू टीचर्स, म्हणजे तुम्ही इतकं सहज काहीतरी सांगून जाता, तुम्ही इतकं मोठं काहीतरी शिकवून जाता. आणि KEMच्या माझ्या आठवणी 2 माणसांशिवाय कधीच पूर्ण होत नाहीत. एक डॉक्टर रवी बापट आणि दुसरे सुबल सरकार. या 2 माणसांनी माझ्या आयुष्याला KEMमध्ये पूर्ण कलाटणी दिली. म्हणजे एकाच लाईफ स्पॅनमध्ये माणूस किती वेगवेगळ्या आयुष्यांना स्पर्श करू शकतो, किती वेगवेगळ्या पद्धतीनं आयुष्य जगू शकतो, हे मी कायम RDBंकडे बघून शिकलो. आणि मला अजूनही आठवतं की पहिल्यांदा सुरुवातीला मी जे म्हणालो की मराठी की हिंदी या वादामध्ये जेव्हा अपूर्वाईची सुरुवात केली, तेव्हा अपूर्वाईची सुरुवात भांडून करत असताना डीन्स लॉन्सवर जेव्हा अपूर्वाईचा पहिला कार्यक्रम झाला, तेव्हा उपस्थित असणारे एकमेव शिक्षक हे स्वतः RDB होते. जी सुरुवात झाली आज 25 वर्ष गेल्यानंतर आवर्जून विचारतात, सर ते अपूर्वाई नावाचा काहीतरी एक कार्यक्रम आहे, अद्वैत नावाची एकांकिका स्पर्धा, आमचा YB सर असतील मागे, येस YB, हां, म्हणजे परमेश्वर गुण असेल, शिवशंकर असेल, यांच्या सगळ्यांच्या साथीनं जेव्हा अद्वैत ही एकांकिका स्पर्धा सुरू करत होतो, मला अजूनही आठवतं की RDBंकडे गेल्यानंतर RDBने प्रश्न विचारला, काय रे बावटपणा करायचा, कशासाठी पाहिजे तुला? आणि सरांना सांगितलं, सर INT उन्मेषला आपल्याला वेळ मिळत नाही. ड्रॉवर उघडला गेला, ड्रॉवरमधून पहिली एक कॉन्ट्रीब्युशन ही पहिली RDBंनी दिली आणि सांगितलं, सुरू कर, मी पाठीशी, काय मदत लागेल ती सांग. मला वाटतं हे पाठीशी उभं राहणं हे फार महत्त्वाचं होतं. कदाचित त्यावेळी RDB पाठीशी उभे राहिले नसते तर आज मी इथं उभा राहिलो नसतो. तीच गोष्ट होती सुबल सरकारांची. म्हणजे खरं तर अपूर्वाईच्या वेळी कोरिओग्राफर म्हणून आलेले सुबल सरकार, म्हणजे शेट्टीच्या कॅन्टीनच्या बाहेर टेलिफोन होता आणि आजही नंबर आठवतो 413682 हा सुबलदांच्या घराचा नंबर होता. आणि मला वाटतं रेगे मॅमनी पहिल्यांदा मला बाळधुरींचा नंबर दिला होता आणि बाळधुरींच्या कडून सुबल सरकारांचा हा रेफरन्स मिळाला होता. आणि तो 413682 इतक्या वेळा डायल करून झाला होता. सुरुवातीला अपूर्वाईला कोरिओग्राफर म्हणून मदत करा यासाठी होता, त्यानंतर करिअरमध्ये पुढं जाण्यासाठी होता. आणि या माणसाकडून, सुबल सरकारांकडून इतका मोठा कोरिओग्राफर, पण त्यांच्याकडून एक गोष्ट शिकलो की हात आभाळाला लागल्यावर सुद्धा पाय जमिनीला कसे रोवून ठेवायचे असतात, ही गोष्ट शिकलो असेल तर ती सुबलदांकडून शिकलो. या 2 महत्त्वाच्या गोष्टी या KEMकडून शिकलो. करिअर स्विचच्या बाबतीत म्हणाल तर भुजबळ सर तुमच्या ऑर्थोपेडिक्सच्या बिल्डिंगपासून, म्हणजे ऑर्थो बिल्डिंगपासून ते शेट्टीच्या कॅन्टीनच्या कट्ट्यावर कॉफी प्यायला येत असताना ट्रान्सफॉर्मेशन होतं, एक टर्निंग पॉईंट होता जो त्यावेळी मिहीर बापटने दिलेला. म्हणजे मिहीर आणि मी, वॉर्डची एक्झाम असते ना आपली, वॉर्डची एक्झाम संपल्यानंतर मिहीर म्हणाला कॉफी पिऊ आपण. आणि येता येता दोघे गप्पा मारत असताना मिहीरने शांतपणे सांगितलं की मला बॅडमिंटनमध्ये खूप इंटरेस्ट होता, मला वाटायचं मी नॅशनलला खेळेन, पण नंतर तो फेड आउट होत गेला. पण बेटा तुझं तसं होत नाही आहे, काहीतरी गडबड आहे. सो तू तुझं एकदा जे पॅशन आहे ते फॉलो करून बघ. आणि तिथून सुरुवात झाली खरं तर खूप सिरियसली कलाक्षेत्रात पदार्पण करण्याची. आणि कलाक्षेत्रात पदार्पण करत असताना पुन्हा तुम्ही सगळ्यांनी, म्हणजे सुपे सर असतील, रेगे मॅम असतील, तुम्ही सगळ्यांनी जो एक कायम विश्वास दिला, खुशाले सर असतील, म्हणजे त्यांचं कायम वेगळं प्रांत मांडलेला असायचा. म्हणजे त्यांच्याबरोबर काम करत असताना एक वेगळा अनुभव हा कायम मिळायचा. आणि त्यातला एक फार मोठा अनुभव कदाचित सुपे सरांना आठवत असेल. 3rd इयरची एक्झाम होती आणि 3rd फायनलच्या एक्झाममध्ये पेडियाट्रिक्सचा पेपर बाकी होता. 2-3 दिवसांची गॅप होती आणि बाहेर अजून मला माहीत नाही, बाहेर फुटपाथवर कॉफीवाला रात्री कॉफी मांडतो की नाही मला माहीत नाही, आता मांडतो अजूनही. ती कॉफी प्यायला गेलो आणि माझा बॅचमेट होता एक, आता मोठं नाव आहे म्हणजे टीचिंगमध्ये एक मोठं नाव आहे ते. कॉफी प्यायला गेलो, कॉफी पिता पिता गप्पांमध्ये फक्त असं झालं, म्हणजे एक मुलगी त्याला आवडत होती, त्याला तीच मुलगी माझ्या मित्राला आवडत होती, आपल्याकडे कायम असतं. आणि तितक्या शांतपणे सांगितलं, हे तेरे से नाही बनने वाला रे. इतकं शांतपणे सांगितलं, येऊन फक्त बसलो चरण सर. आणि मला आठवतं इथे इकडच्या बाजूची टॉवर रूम माझी होती आणि तिकडे मला घाईघाईने एक जण सांगायला आला की राडा आलाय, तू काहीतरी राडा करून आलायस. आणि गेल्यानंतर मला असं कळलं, मी जेव्हा गेलो दार उघडलं तेव्हा आता तो खरं तर बिहारमध्ये परबत्ताचा खरं तर आता आमदार आहे, जो माझा बॅचमेट होता संजीव कुमार, डॉक्टर संजीव कुमार, तो आता परबत्ताचा आमदार आहे. त्याच्या रूममध्ये तो दुसरा स्टुडंट बसला होता आणि त्याने असं सांगितलं होतं की मला इन्फिरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स येतो आणि त्यांनी त्याची सुसायडल नोट लिहिली होती. पेडियाट्रिक्सच्या पेपरला 3 दिवस राहिले होते. आय स्टिल रिमेंबर, मला शेट्टीच्या कॅन्टीनमधली तेव्हा पनीर टिक्का बिर्याणी खायचो आपण. ती पनीर टिक्का बिर्याणी जाम आवडायची आणि त्यामुळे त्या प्रेशरमधून बाहेर काढण्यासाठी मला अश्विनी पनीर टिक्का बिर्याणी ऑर्डर केली होती. आणि ती पनीर टिक्का बिर्याणी समोर ठेवून मी ढसढसा रडत होतो की अरे कोणीतरी आपल्यामुळे सुसाईड नोट लिहिली बरं, ज्याच्यामध्ये आपला काहीही संबंध नाही आहे. पण मला आठवतं की त्यावेळी सुपे सरांनी जो एक पाठिंबा दिला होता, मी त्यांच्याकडे गेलो होतो, त्यांच्या केबिनमध्ये बसून त्यांना सांगितलं होतं आणि सरांनी एकच सांगितलं होतं, काळजी करू नकोस, मी सगळं हँडल करेन, असं काहीही होणार नाही. शिक्षक म्हणून मला वाटतं हा अनुभव देणं आणि त्यावेळी विद्यार्थ्यांच्या पाठीशी उभं राहणं हे खूप गरजेचं होतं. आणि केईमनी सगळ्यात महत्त्वाची काय गोष्ट दिली असेल तर मला लाईफ पार्टनर दिली. नाही, आत्ता संक्रांत झाली सर, पतंग लय उडायला लागला ना, त्या मांजानी ताण द्यावा लागतोय. त्यामुळे पतंग जोपर्यंत स्वैर होऊ नये त्यासाठीचा जो मांजा महत्त्वाचा असतो तो लाईफ पार्टनर खरं तर केईमनी दिला. आणि आणखी महत्त्वाची गोष्ट दिली त्या सगळ्या शिक्षकांनी, या मातृसंस्थेने मला हे शिकवलं, ते म्हणजे मोठं होणं म्हणजे पैशाने मोठं होणं नसतं. मोठं होणं म्हणजे केवळ संपत्तीनं मोठं होणं नसतं. म्हणजे आजही खासदार म्हणून आम्हाला 36 बिझनेस क्लासचे प्रवास हे मिळतात आणि मी अजूनही इकॉनॉमी क्लासने प्रवास करतो. मला एकदा माझ्या नेत्यांनी विचारलं की तुम्हाला बिझनेस क्लासचे प्रवास असताना तू इकॉनॉमी क्लासने प्रवास का करतो. त्यावरचं माझं उत्तर असं होतं की हा आसक्ती आणि विरक्तीचा बॅलन्स आहे. कारण आज उद्या परवा, आज सेकंड टर्म आहे, 3ऱ्या 4थ्या 5व्या कुठल्या तरी टर्मला मी कधीतरी पराभूत होईल आणि कधीतरी जर पराभूत झालो तर मी रोज बिझनेस क्लासने फिरणारा नसेल, तर त्या दिवशी जेव्हा मी विमानात चढेल तेव्हा ते रिकामी बिझनेस क्लासची खुर्ची ही माझ्या दुःखाचं कारण बनेल. त्यापेक्षा पद असताना त्याचा माज नको आणि पद गेल्यावर त्याची लाज नको, इतक्या शांतपणे वागणं हा संस्कार जर असेल तर मला वाटतं हा संस्कार हा केईएमने दिला, हा संस्कार या GS मेडिकल कॉलेजने दिला आणि त्यामुळं हा तुमचा सगळ्यांचा आशीर्वाद हा कायम पाठीशी राहील. मी खरं तर माफी मागतो, मला वेळेचं खरंच भान नाही, कारण कलाकार आणि नेता दोन्ही असल्यामुळं माईकची जास्त आवड असते, त्यामुळं थांबायचं कधी हे कृपया आपण सांगा. पण पुन्हा एकदा तुमच्या सगळ्यांचं, कारण या 100 वर्षामध्ये अगदी चतुर्थ श्रेणी कामगारापासून पॅरामेडिकल स्टाफपासून प्रत्येकानं आयुष्याची अनेक वर्ष दिलेली आहेत. आणि मी कायम अश्विनीकडे बघितल्यानंतर एका गोष्टीचा मला कायम हेवा वाटतो, कारण ग्रॅज्युएशन KEM, पोस्ट ग्रॅज्युएशन KEM आणि त्यानंतर सुद्धा तुम्ही तुमच्या अल्मा मॅटरपासून दूर जात नाही, हे नशीब खूप थोड्या जणांना असतं. आणि त्यामुळे मी तिला कायम चिडवत असतो की किती सुख आहे, किती समाधान आहे ना. म्हणजे ज्याच्यावर विश्वासानं तुम्ही ज्याच्या कुशीत बसलेला आहात त्याच मातृसंस्थेच्या कुशीत तुम्ही तुमचं करिअर करता, ही फार महत्त्वाची गोष्ट आहे. आणि म्हणून पुन्हा एकदा आपणा सर्वांना या शतक महोत्सवाच्या मनापासून शुभेच्छा देतो, सदिच्छा देतो. आजच्या काळामध्ये या तुमच्या प्रत्येक कृतीतून म्हणजे तुम्ही इतकं मोठं काम करता, तुम्ही प्रत्येक जण तुम्ही इतकं मोठं काम करता. कारण पिंकी मॅम मागे बसल्यात, थापर मॅडम, तुम्ही कधीच पेशंट ट्रीट करताना त्याचं नाव काय, त्याचं आडनाव काय, त्याची जात काय, त्याचा धर्म काय, त्याचा पंथ काय, त्याचा प्रांत काय, हे कधीच पाहिलं नाही. जेव्हा आज समाजामध्ये धर्म, जात, पंथ, प्रांत या सगळ्या गोष्टींनी एक डिव्हिजन सुरू असताना कुठंतरी माणूस म्हणून माणसाकडे बघण्याचा सगळ्यात मोठा दृष्टिकोन जर कोणी देत असेल तर ते तुम्ही सगळेजण देतात. तुमच्या मार्गदर्शनातून ते होत आहे. आणि त्यामुळे आयुष्याकडे बघताना सर तुम्ही जे शिकवलं, खासदार म्हणून काम करताना तेच करतो. इन्स्पेक्शन, पाल्पेशन, ऑस्कल्टेशन, इन्व्हेस्टिगेशन, डिफरन्शियल डायग्नोसिस आणि मग डायग्नोसिस. आणि त्यामुळे दुसऱ्या टर्ममध्ये आल्यानंतर सुद्धा अजून कुठल्याही करप्शनच्या बाबतीत अमोल कोल्हेचं नाव तुम्हाला कुठल्याही पेपरमध्ये बघायला मिळत नाही. आणि त्यामुळे डिफरन्शियल डायग्नोसिस करून मग डायग्नोसिसवर जायचा हा तुमचा सगळ्यांचा जो संस्कार आहे, हा संस्कार टिकवण्याचा आम्ही प्रयत्न करू. पण तुमच्या सगळ्यांकडून मानवतेच्या दृष्टिकोनातून आणि राष्ट्र निर्माणाच्या गोष्टीसाठी तुमच्या प्रत्येकाचं जे योगदान आहे, या योगदानाप्रती मी आपणा सर्वांना मानाचा मुजरा करतो. धन्यवाद. जय शिवराय.
धन्यवाद अमोल. मला असं वाटतं की एकदा नेता आणि अभिनेता जेव्हा एकत्र आला आणि त्यांनी जेव्हा भाषण दिलं तेव्हा तो एक जो रंग पालटला तो आपण आता मला वाटतं सर्वांनी अनुभवला. आणि धन्यवाद की इतकं सुंदर बोलल्याबद्दल. मी सुचित